If it's happening in New York, New Jersey, or Long Island, hear about it with Joe Piscopo. Mornings, 6 to 10 on AM 970. The Answer.
Live from the smartwaytobuy.com studios.
Good morning. Welcome to your Tuesday morning briefing. Here's what you need to know to start your day with your host, former Saturday Night Live superstar Joe Piscopo. Produced by Frank Morano with news guy Al Gattulo and traffic with Debbie Duhane. This is Piscopo in the morning on AM 970. The Answer.
You have the cool, clear eyes of a seeker of wisdom and truth. Yet there's that upturned chin and the grin of impetuous youth.
Sound familiar, Geraldo? You know,
I love it.
You know this guy. It's like my mantra. Never enough Sinatra, right?
It was such an honor to meet him a couple of times through Jerry Weintraub.
Wow, you were with Jerry Weintraub?
Yeah, I was with Jerry during the day.
The great Geraldo on the air, live in the studio. Kind enough, I've known this gentleman for over 20 plus years. He is classy. He is great. I'm telling you, see you show up. I love you for that, man.
You asked. I was so pleased and proud to be asked.
The Geraldo Show, a memoir. This is Geraldo's book. We want everybody to Google and check this out. Man, look at me on the radio. Oh, how did I get here? You're great on the radio, but I wish you would come over to AM 970. Geraldo, think about it.
And they pay you in food here.
we don't get nothing.
On a good day.
On a good day.
Listen, good food.
It's so true, man. David Burka, I'm sure you know David came in, he makes all the food and everything. And,
I'm looking at it. It looks fabulous.
And you're welcome to have all that you want, Geraldo. That's all we can.
I just woke up. It's a little
I know.
A little much.
I know. Can't fan we can't offer you, man. Look at you keeping yourself in shape. See, I'm intimidated already.
You know, you talk about books. My first book on Willowbrook in 1972, Frank Sinatra came to my publication party.
You're kidding?
Yeah,
the
it was,
old man showed up.
Senator and Mrs. Javits had the party at their apartment. He came. Henry Kissinger came.
Wow, Kissinger
Kurt
too?
Vonnegut was my father-in-law.
So talk me through with Weintraub and the old man, the Frank Sinatra.
Weintraub really, in a way that was so deeply historically impressive, took Frank out of his shell and took him to his next phase, with that whole live event. I mean, that was
Madison
a
Square
big
Garden.
deal. That was a big deal at the Garden. To get Sinatra to do it, to come, he was starting to cloister down. He was starting to, do smaller things, Vegas, not moving past his comfort zone. Jerry pulled him out, put him back on live TV, primetime. And it was sensational. And, I think it extended Sinatra's career a decade.
Yeah, very good take. Only you would have that take. Were you there at the Garden?
I was there.
You
I was
did
there.
you?
Not only that, I was there when Sinatra did the later play at Carnegie Hall.
Oh, my God. Carnegie Hall, I remember. You were there at the main event?
A main event.
You were there at the main event when he came out.
It was ABC, remember?
It was one of those. Yes, and Howard Cosell.
Yep.
Howard Cosell did the intro.
Yep.
And it was live. He had
live.
cue cards off. Did he have cue cards off of camera, if you remember?
I remember for cue cards for him and later Barbra Streisand.
Yeah. And, I mean, just cue cards was just to get him in and out of the song, not for the lyrics at the time, but the band.
No, not the lyrics, but the chatter.
Yeah, the chat. How exciting! I mean, the buzz at the Garden always.
Oh, and he was so calm. The main thing he wanted, I think it was Patsy's. He wanted Patsy's to cater his chartered flight back to Vegas.
That's great. That's great. I believe it. He did. He always would go there. The great Geraldo. Geraldo has written a book, Geraldo Show, a memoir. You're listening. It's 8 minutes after 9 o'clock with Piscopo in the morning. I just remember, Geraldo, I have such immense respect for this man because, as I said earlier, I started a foundation. My heart goes out to at-risk children because it's there, but for the grace of God go all of us. I was a punk. Thank God I had my parents there. I went to the inner cities of Camden, of Newark. So horrible things. So I started the Positive Impact Foundation. The first man I went to was Geraldo Rivera when he had tens of millions of people watching his television show. And you put a Newark cop, which I'll never forget, Geraldo, and kids from the Boys and Girls Club. You had the courage. We came down to your neck of the woods down there, and I guess it was Monmouth County. We went down there. I believe it was the Basie Theater, I think.
Yeah, Count Basie Theater.
And we were outside. I said, I can't believe Geraldo's going to let me do this. And a cop, think about the image. Back then, 20 years ago, a police officer, remember with his weapon was like off the bench when he was bench pressing, teaching a kid how to work out. That was gold. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you for all you do for the community. You really, as you have evolved into the man that you are, you have a great sense. You have united New Jersey and New York in a way that is wonderful. You've really done good stuff for a lot of good people, and I appreciate that.
Coming from you, you wrote the book, my friend. You know. Now you're not back in Jersey anymore. I understand.
No, I still have the house in Edgewater.
All right, there you go.
I still have the house. That's where I came from this morning.
Thank you.
Right by the GW Bridge.
Oh, I love it. But did I hear you? Can I talk about where you live in
Cleveland?
Wait, you went to Ohio?
Ohio, Shaker Heights.
This is you are so.
Erica, my wife, is there.
Oh, look at you.
I got 1.5 feet in the grave, so I wanted her to be settled before I go. I told her we got to hold on to the Jersey house. It's got a dock. You know, I have my boat there, and I commute by boat.
Do you remember? Look at the questions. Frank Morano is our producer, Geraldo. He's a very smart guy. I said, give me some questions for Geraldo. Look at this. I've never seen this many questions, and I'm going to start talking to you about when you and me and the late great Roger King were saying "Slow Boat to China" somewhere in Spring Lake, New Jersey.
That guy was a piece of work, wasn't he?
What
Roger
a great
King.
night!
Larger than life, the producer of the Oprah show.
We hung out,
and they did my daytime show, and we hung out with Joey.
Yeah,
talk about hanging out.
It was great. And you got up and sang on stage.
Nowadays, I don't think you can hang out.
Yeah, no, you got to be careful.
Everything is so straight now.
Yeah, what's going on?
Now the world has changed. If you compare the way, everything in the 1970s would be a crime now. Yeah, everything, every relationship, every flirtation. It's
I don't even
put yourself in a bubble.
There's so much I want to hear on your take and everything, and I don't with this. I don't even like to mention her name. Everybody's going after the president in such a salacious way. I mean, I didn't want to hear about Bill Clinton and his affairs. I don't want to hear about Donald Trump and his affairs. Take care of the country. Why? They won't let it go.
I was a ferocious defender of Bill Clinton during the impeachment, and the most effective way I did it was to bust every Republican congressman who had a sex scandal, who was being a hypocrite and going after Bill Clinton. I said that was between him and Hillary. Yeah. It's the same thing now with Melania and the president, the 45th president, Donald Trump. I think that what they are doing to him should be a crime. It is an outrage. And 60 Minutes, to play the Stormy Daniels non-story the way they did, they made it like the second coming. And what was there, really? What was there? That a pornographic actress had a one-nighter with a reality talk show host. Is that our business? 12 years, 13 years later, is that really you're going to stop the world for that?
Yeah.
Even if it is true, and I tell you, some of those allegations, like the thug threatening her in the parking lot, no proof. It's always the most salacious or damning allegation comes where it's impossible to corroborate, to prove or disprove. She makes the allegation, it gets the headline, and if you read, I did a tweet about this last night. If you read the headline in the New York Times yesterday, I don't have it in front of me, but porn actress threatened, moved by Trump threat, not alleged threat, not purported threat, not supposed threat, by Trump threat. That's the front page of the New York Times. How unfair is that? Yeah. I mean, this president, for all his failings, he gets the worst press. Everything he does or says has the most evil connotation. They are trying to destroy him in a way that is so blatant and obvious that he's a friend of mine. He's been a friend of mine for 40 years. And
can you just assure, and thank you for that. And again, people say, "Oh, Joe, you're pro-Trump." I know the guy. 30 years I worked for the guy, and no one treated me better when I worked for them. He would he'd send a train, the plane. He would send a car, whatever you needed, take care of you. He was always friendly. And I remember there was you and I. Geraldo, remember this? I can't remember what the event was. It was you, me, and Donald Trump. It had to be 20 years ago. We were about to go on stage for a charity event, and you and I were just doing small talk. Donald walks in, back then Donald, and he looked. I've told this story on the air. He looked at himself in the mirror because we were just trying to get makeup on, and he pushes his stomach in. And I remember he said to me, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. He goes, "Ugh, I'm just gaining weight. Do I look too fat?" And I'm looking at Donald Trump, the humility of the man. That's the Donald I know.
Well, I don't know about much humility in my experience.
No, on The Apprentice, it wasn't.
The Apprentice, he took such good care of me in The Apprentice.
He did.
He gave me every benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I remember Vinny Pacienza, the fighter who broke his neck?
Sure.
He took me down to see that fight at Atlantic City when he came back from the broken neck.
Donald Trump did?
No, Donald Trump took me down there to see the fight.
Cool.
I hung out with him in Marla at that time. And Pacienza beat Roberto Duran at the end of his career.
Yeah.
first of all, it is such an honor and so unique, so extraordinary to be friends with the guy who becomes president.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the 45th guy in the whole history of the republic to be president.
Puerto Rico interview was everybody. It was riveting. It was stellar. And as you always do, Geraldo Rivera, right on the money, my friend.
But look at the Puerto Rico situation. I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. You have the Puerto Rico situation. The press he got going to Puerto Rico because he threw the loaf of bread, they made him seem like he was a cold-hearted, manipulative person. I was with him the whole time. He couldn't possibly get to the people. It was all like 6 rows of people with cameras. So the only real people were behind the camera. So to get him up, that's why he tossed the loaf of bread. But, I read in the New York Times, Paul Krugman, the Pulitzer Prize-winning or Nobel Prize-winning economist who writes the column on the op-ed, he blamed Trump, his inaction, the president's inaction vis-a-vis Puerto Rico, for a cholera epidemic outbreak in Puerto Rico. There was no cholera outbreak epidemic in Puerto Rico. The guy had to finally apologize. The apology took one little line in the 4th paragraph.
Oh, he did.
The charge was the first graph of the big story. I just think that he's treated very unfairly. He could do better. There's some things I don't like, with the Muslims and Mexicans and migrants and stuff. And I don't think he hangs around with enough black people. I tell you the truth. I told him that too.
Oh, you're
no, I want him to be more of the guy that I knew in New York. You go in his building, he's got Puerto Ricans, he got black guys.
That's how I know him.
Women, men, rich, poor, tall, short. I'd like to see this government reflect that kind of diversity. I think that would go a long way toward people being cooler.
Fair enough. And Melania with Donald, when we would be at nonprofit, and she with Donald, whether it was at the SNL 40, but even more so at philanthropic events that we would be, more than one that I would see, she was just as gracious as Jackie O.
I walked in to his office. I had been actually overseas. I was in Africa. I came back, and I wrote a tweet about how he stopped the congressional Republicans from closing down the Congressional Ethics Committee. They were all deciding that we don't need an ethics committee. All that. President-elect Trump said, that's not happening. Back off. You're going to keep that office open. And I tweeted that he showed who's the boss. He's going to drain the swamp. Yeah. So he wrote me back immediately. And he said, how you doing? I miss you. And I said, well, I'd love to see you before you go down to the inauguration. I went to Trump Tower, brought me right upstairs. The president walks in with Melania. Melania says, how's Erica? She mentioned my wife's wife by name. And it was so gracious. And there she was. You might think, she's, because she's so beautiful that she's got nothing upstairs, but she's a wise, educated, sophisticated woman, speaks 4 or 5 languages. And I just think that his problems now are that he's living with the women and so forth. That's the guy that wasn't running for president a long time ago. Judge him by what he's doing today.
Yeah, well said. Geraldo Rivera with Piscopo in the morning. Everything you've done in your life, Geraldo, broadcasting, journalism, philanthropic ventures. The thing we do admire most about you is your beautiful younger wife. If you don't mind, I say it.
It takes one to know one, but I don't want to talk about it. You've had a rockier road than me, and I've been married 5 times.
You're my hero, brother.
Right.
No, you got a great chapter.
You have to have like a robot for a babysitter.
And you came to the wedding, man. You were great. Except
Geraldo
told me.
My honor.
Geraldo told me off mic, though, guys. He goes to me, when you walked in and you saw me with beautiful young Kimberly, you said to yourself, no way this is going to last. Did you say that to yourself, man?
Well, they said that about me and my wife. We're 18 years now.
Well, this is what I'm saying. You wrote a great chapter about Erica in the book.
She's a fabulous person. Here I have 5 kids, 40 years old, 30 years old, 25, 23, 12. We got the herd. And they're all different ethnicities and, come from different places. When she's around, she's like the mother hen to all of them.
Really?
Even though she's only 3 years older than the oldest. she is the glue that keeps this wild bunch together. My modern family.
Wow,
and
man.
it's a real family. My kids, they love their siblings. Their brothers, sisters. It really is so heartening. It's the best thing in my life.
Yeah.
And who would have figured?
You're such a family guy, man, and you love your kids like that. Before we let you go, Geraldo, you wrote a memoir 30 years ago. Why did you choose to write a book at this time?
Well, 30 years ago, exposing myself, even from the title, that it was a lot of the salacious stuff. A lot of, it was a wild and crazy. You talk about the old days in SNL, but the 70s, the 80s. I mean, these were before AIDS, particularly in the decade of the 70s. Anything went. And a lot of that I talked about and exposed myself. This is a different book. Yeah. This is a much different book. This is mostly a war memoir about my obsessive pursuit of Osama bin Laden, who very close to here, mass murdered so many of our friends. Yeah. At that time, I was in Red Bank, Monmouth County, Rumson Country Day. My girls' school, 6 dads died that day from Cantor Fitzgerald. So a lot about my pursuit of him, the breaking the news of bin Laden when SEAL Team 6 finally killed him 10 years later. And, it's a vivid wartime memoir, and there's a lot in it about the relationship with the president.
Can you hang for a little bit?
Yeah, man.
Oh, this is the best, because I want to talk about 9/11. You were right there, front and center, and we are a block away. And every time I walk down these streets, I know you feel the same thing. And so Geraldo Rivera, the great Geraldo Rivera, with his old pal Piscopo on the radio. We're coming back.
Portions of this show sponsored by Hudson Honda.
Hey, it's Joe on the radio. Radio Piscopo live from New York with the one, the only Geraldo Rivera. I have such a love and respect. I've known Geraldo for such a long time. We've had such fun through the years. But as I watch Geraldo on the air, and when you're on Fox, I said off the air just now, Geraldo's got, you are so intelligent. And people say, oh, you did the talk show, and you with the nose breaking. That's not, you are so bright, you can verbalize, which I don't have that gift. You could verbalize what you're thinking in a time, and everything's on the clock. Am I right? You're on TV.
But you're so self-deprecating. To say that you can't do it is a joke. I mean, you're one of the smoothest guy, one of the most sought-after people.
Wow.
I love that your personification of our hometown.
I love it,
the
man.
metropolitan area. You get the pulse of the people in a way that I think is extraordinary.
And you know what? We're a good people, Geraldo. Feeling for this Michael Davidson funeral.
It's awful.
And you are so aware of the NYPD and we're going to go to 9/11 in a minute. But when you see a young 37 kid, and as we go, and they listen, the FDNY listens, the NYPD listen, and we are honored to have them listening. It's a tough morning at St. Pat's this morning.
I want to do a drive-by up there. I don't like to distract attention, but his story, first of all, it's like he's like the 1100th and 50 firefighter to die in the line of duty. And you talk about 9/11, there was 343 firefighters went into the building when everybody else was running out of the building. Yeah. You could cry just thinking about it, the loss. But that event... I covered 93 also, the first one, where they didn't bring the building down, with the car bomb also launched from Jersey.
Yeah.
That didn't bring the building down. But then in 2001, what happened with it was such a vicious and effective, I mean, in military terms, it was a brilliant sneak attack. It's like the Japanese at Pearl Harbor. It was just horrifying what happened. And just thinking out of order, you mentioned Count Basie Theater, where we were together. I remember that the other dads in my school included Bruce Springsteen and John Bon Jovi. They were also parents in Rumson Country Day. Wow. And so they put on and I owned the newspaper down there, if you remember, the True River Times.
Great paper.
It was really, it still is.
Yeah.
I sold it to a local guy. They did a benefit. They were the glue, and then Bruce's song, "The Rising," that was like the anthem of getting us out of the ashes.
Please don't, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you. "The Rising" is the greatest chronicle of 9/11, audio and visual.
Agreed. And that's the brilliance of it. Did you see him on Broadway yet?
I did not. I should go.
Oh my
I have
God.
to go.
$4,000 a ticket or something. Erica and I we sat behind Bradley Cooper and
Oh, no kidding.
Some other beautiful
Okay, I
women.
better go.
It was just a wonderful show, and he just sits there with the guitar. At one point.
But did he do a concert for the 9/11?
He did it that night at Camp Basie.
That night he did it?
At Camp, not that night.
Yeah,
a
close
couple
by.
of weeks later,
Yeah.
he did a fundraiser for the community, our community, because Middletown, New Jersey, was the highest per capita casualty rate.
I mean, kids.
It was like 160, 170 people of that little community died on that 9/11. And you remember they were here 2 blocks away. It was like they were exhuming the graves of people. Like it's like we think of Michael Davidson. So when you think of one, you could get your arms around it. But to think of almost 3,000. People who went to work, people having breakfast upstairs, people who were at Cantor Fitzgerald starting their trading day, and then all of a sudden you're confronted with the option of burning to death or jumping out of the damn window from 100 stories up. Yeah. It's just it was so outrageous. It was so criminal and cowardly in a way. That I was working. I was getting $5 million a year at NBC.
Wow,
six-year deal. And I was like halfway through it, and I said, "Send me to Afghanistan. I have to go. I have to have revenge against the people who did this to my hometown." They said, "No, you're on the #1 rated show, Rivera Live. You're in Fort Lee, New Jersey. You're not going to move. We have plenty of people to go and cover the war." So then I went to my old friend Roger Ailes, and I said, "Roger, will you let me cover the war for Fox News, which was just starting up then?" He said, "I can't pay you $5 million. I'll give you $2 million." I said, "Yeah." So I took an enormous pay cut, but I went to war, and I almost never left. I mean that. I was I got hired from Fox. By the time NBC let me out of the deal, it was November already. I took the job on Friday. By the next Monday, I was in Pakistan en route to the Khyber Pass and Afghanistan and the fighting against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And, I chased bin Laden for a decade, and it was very frustrating. I told people that he was hiding near Tora Bora.
You said
near
that?
the border. I said it at the time. That's a big part of the book. And people didn't believe me, and they were more interested in taking shots at me than they were at catching the terror mastermind. Finally, thank God, I was on the air live just by chance. 10 years later, I did the Washington Correspondents' Dinner, so I was in D.C. So I did my weekend show from D.C., and the news came, we got a big bulletin, the President of the United States is going to be talking to the American people. And then I found out even before he came on that it was bin Laden had been killed by our U.S. Navy SEALs. Thank God. The guy who inflicted so much pain and suffering on us was finally dead.
Those reports were so riveting.
Yeah, yeah, things blowing up all over.
So what did you do? I always thought when you did the reports, and you're great on your feet, because they would go live to you.
Live all the time.
And you're just so natural at that. But then, the camera's off, and then you're with the men and the women of the United States military. Are you doing research? You're checking. You become part of that family, Geraldo.
I did eventually, but remember in 2001 there was very little U.S. military on the ground there. I think that's how bin Laden escaped. We didn't have enough ground troops. We were bombing and bombing and bombing, and I got close to where they were bombing, so the bombing was right in the background. But we had we had like 24 people in Tora Bora to stop bin Laden from escaping. It was ridiculous. It was a real strategic error on the part of Donald Rumsfeld, the defense secretary, and the strategy they chose was a bet. You can't beat him from the air. You can't.
So the '93 bombing that you covered, did you see it coming? Did you see everything coming? Because you always have a good overview of things.
You have to remember that '93 was like a forerunner. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Where do you get this? The Cole bombing, remember, wasn't until 2000. So '93 was really avant-garde in a sense, and the whole notion of radical Islam was something that we hadn't really gotten our arms around yet.
Yeah.
But that was the beginning of it. We should have been wiser and saw that there was more coming.
I'll tell you, Geraldo Rivera with Piscopo in the morning. Just an honor to have you here, man. Now, you think they want me to go in, run for office. You and I had a chat in your office. And forgive me, this was great. We did a shot, I believe it was on your show, and you went to your corner office upstairs. Oh, I remember. No,
Only bar in the building.
I didn't want to say anything. You were great. You were great. And you know what you said? Can I say this on the air? Yeah, what the heck? We're so organically honest on the show. You said, I had a young gal with me. I had a young gal with me. Forgive me. You're listening, and I love you. I love you because you're part of the family. And Geraldo and I are like buddies. Excuse me. He says to me, he looks at the beautiful young gal that I was with, and you said, you got to give her a baby. She's going to want a baby. You got to give her a baby. And you know what? I have the most beautiful 7-year-old with that great gal.
I said that you can't marry a woman of childbearing age without giving her a child to bear.
And I have to tell you, it was and people make fun of it. They get after me. They make fun. You say, they're taking shots at you. Forget about it. I'm like dead meat. But it's the greatest thing in the world. Our children, Geraldo.
But here we are with walkers at the Little League game. But the thing is, I think that you would be a brilliant senator or a governor of New Jersey. But will they forgive that?
Yeah,
that's a big
good
question.
point. Good point.
10 years ago, they'd be more forgiving.
Yeah.
Now I'm not so sure.
I always say, too, and I said it when I looked at going in before I stepped down for the Republicans, did the right thing. And I said, they go, hey, Piscopo, you're in for the babysitter. I said, yes, I did. Have you seen her? Next question. I mean, what am I going to do? If you joke your way through it, I did nothing inappropriate, nothing illegal.
A few years ago that played. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe nowadays you got to be careful.
That's the big thing with the president and the bimbo eruption, as Hillary Clinton infamously called President Clinton.
That's Hillary's. Those are Hillary's
words. The bimbo eruption.
Yeah.
The problem with it is that the yucky factor. You now, with all of the talk of of male prerogative and female abuse and all the rest of it and harassment.
Understood, sure.
It's women will turn against Republicans in a way that will be accelerated, and the midterm elections could, as a result, be affected by it. Although, interestingly enough, the president's approval ratings are ticking up. I think that maybe people are recognizing how unfair it is that people are piling on Donald Trump, and they just lay off. These allegations seem so sketchy.
It is, and then that whole Me Too movement. I always said, I told Neil Cavuto on Fox, I said, it needs to go there now. But you know why? I'm the father of 3 daughters, man.
Me too. I got 3 daughters. Yeah. But what you want some due process. That's the problem. Yeah. You want some where the accused. It's one thing if they admit the conduct, as Lauer did apparently and Charlie Rose. But these are great guys. Tavis Smiley is fighting it. He said it was baloney.
Right.
These were consensual relationships, and people have to be free. In the news business, it's a flirty business. Everybody is with everybody, and that's where. What do you think Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski met? They didn't meet at the church.
Good point. Yeah,
they met in the studio.
Yeah. You got to check out Geraldo's new book. It's The Geraldo Show, a memoir. And Geraldo Rivera, just Google Geraldo, and you'll see the breadth of work that this brilliant man has done. He is a good friend. He's a great humanitarian, a philanthropic genius. And I got to tell you, man, it's been a blast to know you, my friend. And you are so kind to come in live in the studio.
You're great, man.
God bless you, Geraldo.
Thank you, Joey.
Thank you, my friend. Geraldo Rivera. Let's jump.
Everybody knows this guy. No, everybody knows he can do a radio show. Joe Piscopo. Mornings, 6 to 10 on AM 970. The Answer.